panel discussion to wrap up today's educational lineup. We've got our two panelists. We've got Mr. Trey Scherer and Mr. Derek Thompson. We'll be talking about some seed stock marketing, and Larry Meacham will moderate the discussion.
Thank you, Lance. First and foremost, I want to thank Derek and Trey for accepting the role of the discussion that we're going to have talking about seed stock marketing. The first question that I'm going to ask, and I'm going to kick it off, and I do want to get some field of questions from the membership as we go through this. But I'm going to ask first, why is there a need for registered cattle, seed stock cattle? And I'll ask either one of these two guys to start, or I'll start. Y'all go ahead. No.
You know, Larry, it's funny that you asked that question. It was about, I guess, 17 years ago when I served on my very first committee at BBU. I was on the long-range planning, and not long-range, it was commercial marketing. And, there was a time, and I see Mark Blau shaking his head laughing over there. There was a time it seemed like our association was strictly focused on just what you could do in a pure blood standpoint. And I got up and said, this is the most important committee here in the association, because without the commercial cattle industry, we wouldn't exist. And the primary goal of any seed stock breed is to raise cattle for the commercial industry. And when we start losing focus on that, we're going to get in a bind real quick. So if we want to be in the beef industry, we need to be focused on raising cattle that fit the commercial industry or one of its facets. If not, we'll look up and be like the longhorn industry, which, it might as well be, dogs or recreational animals or white-tailed deer.
Yard art.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't have a lot to say to that. Our crew at Nextgen knows that our mission statement is to bring value to the commercial cattleman, and it can literally be summed up in that as to why we're just doing pure bred business.
Yeah, I think that that's well defined. And again, you can look at it in a number of different ways. Whether we're bringing bulls to the commercial cattlemen, or we're bringing heifers, or whether they're crossbreeding them or whatever that they may be doing. There's so many different things, and that's what brings such value to the Beefmaster animal, because of the maternal traits that we've got. We hang our hat on that, and you can use them over the top of about anything, and you'll hear me talk about that, and have heard me talk about that. That's what makes it such an exceptional animal. So at this time, I'll ask Mark Blau. He's got a question.
Microphone right here, Mark, if you want to stand up.
Y'all know who Jack Dunn was?
I do.
I bet I know you do. I was talking to Jack one time, and he said, before a fella could tell me how to chop wood, I always ask him to show me some chips. Now, just who are you two jokers? How do you market cattle? We haven't gone through that yet. So can you tell us what your programs are?
Yeah, we didn't really introduce ourselves for those of us who didn't know. So, I'm Trey Scherer. I've managed the Collier Farms operation for 20 years now. This is my 20th year at Collier Farms. Started in '01. It is a primarily seed stock operation, but started in a commercial operation back in '87, and built up from some commercial cattle into a seed stock program. So we do a vast majority of seed stock cattle. We are the largest, I think, in the U.S. right now as far as registrations. We'll also market about 150 to 200 commercial E6 females a year. We do feed some cattle in the feed yard and get in the stocker business. After last year's butt whooping, we didn't do any this year after that nice little COVID money lost there. And so, yeah, that's our operation. It's mainly seed stock, but a lot of commercial replacement females, and then some in the feed yard and stocker industry.
Derek Thompson, Nextgen Cattle Company in Paxico, Kansas. For those of you who are familiar with Kansas, eared cattle are a foreign object. So we've had a lot of people ask us, what are we doing with Beefmasters in Kansas? And we started the Nextgen in 2015. Myself, my brother, Brad Lindstrom, who's our first cousin who's in here somewhere. But we're involved really across the board in the cattle industry. Seedstock is probably our smallest operation. We have 2 feed yards, a grow yard in northeast Kansas and a finishing feed yard in southwest Kansas, where we typically have anywhere between 60 to 65,000 head on feed. We're also involved in the meat business, as well as have our most recent acquisition, a processing facility. 2 bull sales a year between Beefmasters and Charolais. We're also in the Charolais breed. We'll sell roughly 600 bulls, counting some private treaty.
That's who they are, Mark.
We sell some commercial females private treaty. We don't have a sale yet. Yep, absolutely.
Any other questions at this time? Kendall?
I'll ask Derek on this because my dad and I started these Beefmasters 40 years ago. And in that period of time, I've never seen anyone that they have commercial cattle, they have registered cattle, they have feed yards, and they have the slaughterhouse that you got in Missouri. And I think you're the first that had all stages. Tell us some of the good things and some of the problems that you run into where you have all of those steps one behind the other.
I don't know that we've got enough time to cover all of that, Kendall.
Yeah, we only have an hour. Hands down, the biggest challenge has been the slaughter facility and just getting people to go to work. But I think really truly back to being in Kansas, we're surrounded by black cattle, red, black Angus, primarily black Angus. We truly believe that there is not 2 better crosses on Angus cattle than a Beefmaster and a Charolais, the best maternal breed, and in our opinion, the best terminal breed out there. So we do a tremendous amount of just jumping in back to trying to bring value to the commercial cattlemen, is going to their ranches and trying to add value and show them the holes that they have in their system. I would tell you, and hopefully nobody's here in the Angus business, but people are frustrated with their Angus cattle in our neck of the woods. We could sit here and talk for days of the issues that breed's suffering from. So we go in and try to add value and share with them that we can fix some of those holes through crossbreeding. There's nothing better in the business than heterosis. We fed a lot of eared cattle prior to getting in the breed. Matter of fact, we would never own an animal unless it had a quarter ear in it. There's a big misnomer that eared cattle won't grade. We could show you thousands of records that prove that differently, and we're out spreading the message that we do have a great product with the Beefmaster. So we could talk into more detail of the issues, but offering people $18 an hour with a heartbeat and can walk and they won't come to work, that's our biggest issue we face right now.
And let's don't talk about that because my eyes are going to start twitching.
Yeah.
Trey and Derek, I know both of y'all and I have had these discussions about when a new member gets in and looking at a sale and saying, this sale did this sale did this, I want to go here, I want to go here, I want to go here, and talked a little bit about picking direction. What advice do you have there? And Trey and I had a real nice talk about some financial stuff just a little bit ago. Can you give us a little insight there?
Yeah, Lance. That's a great question, and I see it a lot with these new breeders and people that have been in the industry a long time. Something that we need to all understand when we're in this room is the registered business is like anything else. It is a pyramid to some point in there, and so you have an end of the pyramid of seed stock breeders selling to seed stock breeders, and probably at a really higher elite level, dollar-wise. I'm not saying cattle-wise, but at least dollar-wise. Then you have a middle ground of other seed stock breeders selling amongst themselves and selling to a few commercial breeders, and then the bigger base of the breed association, realistically, are probably people that want to have a really nice registered animal, do something beyond just a commercial cow, and sell registered genetics, maybe not with the paper all the time, but to the commercial industry. And sometimes when we get into something, we don't really decide where, and you don't have to fit in the box into one particular category. But sometimes from a business standpoint, you ask somebody what their goal was, and they can't tell you where they really wanted to be before they jumped in. And so one of the things when I'm working with a new breeder is we say, well, where do you want to be, and what are you realistically willing to invest in as much time as it is money in this process? And so I think finding our place in the industry is critical as a seed stock breeder, and being realistic of where we want to be. On a financial basis, we were talking about this outside. As a commercial bull buyer, most commercial bull buyers will tell you that it takes somewhere between 4 and 8 calves to pay for their commercial bull. That's the most I'll tell you, about 6 calves is what they're willing to spend on a commercial bull. Would you say that's pretty close? So if you've got $800 calves, that buyer is willing to spend about $4,800 on the bulls. Same thing when you're buying a commercial replacement female. It takes about 3 calves to pay for that commercial replacement female pair. And so if you've got $800 calves, you're looking at somewhere around that $2,400, $2,500 pair, maybe a little more for a really nice premium Beefmaster E6 female. But, somewhere in that math. And I think we need to apply those same metrics to the pureblood industry as well. If you want to sell $1,500, $1,200 to $1,500 pureblood heifers, then I think a $6,000 to $8,000 bull is probably in your target market. If you are a pureblood breeder and say, man, Derek, I want to sell those $15,000, $20,000 heifers, you are not going to do it with an $8,000 bull. So if we say a $10,000 heifer is my market, and you use that same math, you're looking at a $60,000 bull. Now, I don't think you have to go that high, don't get me wrong, but I think we need to be looking relative to the value and apply those same metrics. Same thing with a female. If you want to raise $4,000 and $5,000 heifers, you need to be looking at probably a $15,000 cow to get to those levels. Not saying everybody has to do that, but those are some of the financial metrics I look at, and I think they usually work out pretty well.
I couldn't agree more. Trey's the best salesman in this breed. He's got a bull sale in 2 weeks. So how much did he pay you to tee that one up?
That was a softball, wasn't it? Mark? Oh.
Yeah, the questions, we work with other breeders, and I should thank them. We have other breeds or breeders? Consigners. Yeah, we have roughly, between the Charolais and Beefmaster, roughly 25 consigners, and we couldn't do it without them. It takes a lot of land to raise that many bulls, but I would say that we have very, very strict protocols. We have a handbook that we produce, and we have some consigners in here with very strict protocols. We're buying a lot of the cattle back out of our bulls, so we demand certain things from the bulls before they make the sale. And that's probably the hardest thing. We cull harder on next-gen bulls than we do anybody. But I think as a breed, and our consigners could tell you, it's difficult. I think on this last fall sale, we started with roughly 300 bulls and sold 180, to give you an idea. And it's difficult swallowing that. But I think as a breed, if we want to move forward, not every bull that hits the ground is meant to go out in the commercial industry or the seed stock business. So we have to continue to raise the bar. But yeah, our consigners are great, and we couldn't do without them. I don't know if I answered your question, but yeah. As a new breeder, I mean, Trey has a great program. Larry and Derek, Robert Scott, who's not here. There's several great bull programs out there, and everybody's doing a great job. And I do want to make sure that as a breed, we can accomplish a lot more as one group than we can. I mean, while we still compete selling bulls, I mean, our breed is so small. We have 0.5% of the bull market out there, and there's so much opportunity. I know we're selling more bulls, and our #1 state last spring was Missouri, and Kansas is second. We're selling a lot of bulls up throughout the Midwest. If we can grow this breed, it's going to help every breeder in this room. So, yeah, there's some great options out there for people that are looking to consign bulls.
Mackey?
Yes. On your sales, as a breed, we hear a lot about performance. And my question with performance, I got a two-part question. What are you considering when we say performance? Is it just EPDs or is it more than that? And secondly, how do you work in performance in your sales and in marketing Seedstock along with the looks of the animal?
Good question.
Yeah, go first, Trey.
Yeah, I'll hit that one first and cue over to Derek. So in our program, both bull and female, if you pick up an Advantage program catalog, an Advantage Sale catalog, you'll see that every animal has all complete performance data. And by that, I mean it'll have, the only thing we don't require is a birth weight, because I don't want somebody to lie, because we know we're not there every day, every night. So that's the only thing we don't require. But we have full weaning weights, yearling weights, scan data, every measure that we can take other than hip height and pelvic. I don't think we have those, but we try to incorporate that in there, mainly to give the potential customer as much data as possible in as honest of a light as possible. From a parameter standpoint, we have minimum criteria. We've never really put a criteria on EPDs itself because we know those vary between herds. We like to get the animals together and test them together as much as possible and look at those contemporary groups within our test facility or in that test group. So we may say, hey, we don't want any, for instance, the bull cell, we try not to have any adjusted 205s below 530, no birth weights over 95 pounds. Every once in a while an adjusted value kind of slips by a few pounds, but that's kind of our target. No negative dollar indices. One thing we implemented a couple of years ago was on actual data. We didn't want to see any ribeyes under 1 inch on the bull cell, or and then no IMFs under 1. This year we don't have any IMFs under 2 in the bull cell. May not always be that great, but so I think when we set these goals, and also like Derek said, we started with a large number of animals and culled down, and so that's critical. I don't care if you're in the live oak test, Collier and the Nextgen or BOF, any of the bull growing tests and events, be ready and understanding that half the animals are probably not going to make the sale if that test is doing their job. And that's how we get a better product in the end. But that's how we incorporate it. We don't set hard and fast EPD parameters or even actuals. We know every program's a little different. We look at a big picture between the actual performance, the EPD performance, and definitely phenotype and structure is always first and foremost in our program.
Yeah, specifically to carcass, we're scanning bulls starting next week. Anything below a 2.5 IMF will get immediately culled, doesn't matter what they look like. And then in per 100 on ribeye area. I'll tell you, and being very connected to the commercial industry, they still, while they're paying a lot more attention to EPDs, it's still 70% phenotype in my opinion. People may disagree with that. The bull has to look good. I don't care how good the numbers are. That you've got to have that phenotype. Keep in mind they're using a maternal breed to try to raise females. We want to make sure we're not providing them terminal bulls. So phenotype is still very, very critical. I figured there was a time where I could bring this up, and I'll do it now. But before I walked in, I pulled up the prime choice to prime spread, selected choice spread in today's market, and it's pretty significant. It's very significant from a choice to prime. But in today's market, this is as of today, the choice to prime spread is $84 per 100 on the carcass weight. So average carcass that goes through our plants roughly, let's just call it 800 pounds as an example. It's $363 for a prime and $279 for a select animal. So roughly $600 and some dollars difference between a choice and a prime animal. And then the select choice spread is $30. You can do the math there as well. It's just shy of $390 some dollars, the difference between a select and a choice animal. I bring that up in the fact that the biggest concern with a lot of commercial guys we talk to, and keep in mind, 90%, 85% of the commercial cattlemen and women out there do not retain ownership on their animals. Superior through different avenues like that. But for the folks that do retain ownership, they want to use eared cattle and they want to use Beefmasters. They just don't want to get hammered on all the popular grids that are out there with the big four, wherever you may be harvesting your animals. We're not raising Beefmasters to try to raise prime animals. What we're trying to do is avoid selects, because we all know the other values that they're going to bring to the table inside of the commercial herd, fertility, and even in the feed yard. People get so focused on carcass, it's feed efficiency, health, all the benefits that people yield, things that people don't think about on a retained ownership basis. So I just bring that up is I thought the speaker was great today at AM talking about carcass and where we need to move as a breed. Select animals, and it's going to continue to be more pressure on them. There's no place in the market for select beef today, and it's not getting any better anytime soon. So we need to continue as a breed to raise the bar, specifically on marbling. We're actually not too far behind on ribeye area. The days of these packing plants, and we could show you a demonstration, dealing with an 18-inch ribeye versus a 13-inch ribeye is about 10 to 15 minutes at the fab floor. So we don't need 18-inch ribeyes, but we can't deal with 8-inch or 9-inch ribeyes either. We got off on a little tangent, but
That's okay. I mean, that's good information. Derek, did you have a question?
Yeah, he answered most of them, but one thing I do want to say is I applaud you guys for being up there. I'd like to nominate you to be up there again next year. I think there's a lot of wealth of knowledge, and coming from me and my dad in front of me, we dealt with the same issues with y'all. It's dealing with all the consigners and stuff like that. It's a hard deal to juggle, that's for sure. And I appreciate you working with everybody and going out and waving the flag. So the two questions you didn't hit on was, I'm going to start with Trey. He can answer it, and then you can we'll finish up with Derek. But do you require your breeders to be in whole herd reporting? And then after Derek answers, tell me, you're fairly new in the cattle feeding. When you started buying these customers' cattle that were heavily influenced in Beefmaster, what was your two biggest negative things that you found about them, and what was your two positive things that you found out about them?
That's 3 questions.
you guys remind me of it.
Yeah, remind him on that second one. So, on our consigners, we don't, the way our program's set up, it's just a marketing option for a lot of guys. It's not really curtailing them in where we get all their product and kind of run roughshod over their outfit. And I don't think any of the cooperator style programs are very exclusive on that type of deal. But we do not require whole herd reporting just because it doesn't fit every breeder and every facet and every breeder's goal. Now, I do encourage every breeder to turn in as much data. So if they're a non-whole herd member, I do encourage them to turn in all of their weaning weights on all of their calves, even on, and I encourage everybody in this room, it's something that we're even having to work on. For years, if a cow lost a calf, we didn't record that. She just didn't have a calf at registration. Maybe she stepped on it at the hay ring last winter, or the coyotes killed it, or maybe it was a cold calf that he got up to 350 pounds, and you just said, hey, I need to get this little rat off this cow, and you send him to town. I mean, we can raise a good one, but I can raise one sorrier than anybody. And so we all have those animals that do get removed at off-season time periods, but if everyone will make sure and record that calf birth on that cow, that's critical as we move forward with these age to first calf and stayability EPDs. A lot of breeders' data out there, and Lance can probably go on and on about this forever, is that some of our EPDs are all over the place and don't look very good just because we didn't turn in the data points. And being in whole herd, you're more encouraged to do that. So if that's of somebody's interest, I'm all for that. If they want to be in whole herd, I'm very supportive of that. But I also realize that some programs, it just may not fit their dynamics, and so we don't have any hard requirements on whole herd or not whole herd. Did that answer that question for you, Derek?
Yeah, we don't require it now. It's probably a great idea. We require so much other things from our consigners, they'd probably all quit if we continue to put more on them. Specifically to, I think, feeding cattle and what we've seen, to be honest with you, it takes so long. We're just starting to get some cattle in that we know are out of our genetics. One of the things I've talked to Larry about, I think, on the spring calves from people that have used our genetics, I think we're up to 1,000 DNA samples full on those calves that are heading to the feed yard. So one of our big pushes is carcass data backed by DNA, and it's going to help the breed. I mean, a lot of our genetics are Colliers or BOF, or I mean, we've only been in the breed for 5 years, so it's going to benefit the breed as a whole. But I would tell you, on most good Angus cattle, black and red Angus cattle, we see 85+% choice or better. Where you can get into some issues is down in the Gulf Coast regions, areas like that. And I can't say that it's out of our genetics or even some of them even the Beefmaster. I mean, they're turning out 100 bulls and not all just Beefmaster. But you get into some of these more F1, Brahman, Hereford cross type cows. I mean, they're not known for marbling. It wouldn't be uncommon to get 50% of those animals going select. And back to what I talked about, in the meat business, I mean, we're currently losing over $200 a head on select meat. So those don't work from that aspect, and you got to hopefully you pay for them accordingly. But as a whole, our cattle will do really well. I mean, if the bull can only carry 50% of the animal, but on good quality cattle, the Beefmasters won't send you backwards on the carcass side.
I'm next.
That Doc, you don't have the microphone.
You're right after me. I'm going to hand it to you. Guys, how important is uniformity of color to your commercial bull buyers?
It's critical. Keep in mind, I just made the comment that 90% of the cattlemen and women don't retain ownership. If you retain an ownership, it means nothing. But if you're selling through Superior, through a local sale barn, I mean, it's going to cost you 10 to 15 bucks a hundred every single time. I'm not saying it should, but it's just how that game works. So uniformity is critical, and dealing with a three-way cross breed, I mean, we have a challenge immediately in that manner from that standpoint. So we strive, we talk to our consignors all the time about uniformity in our bulls, and it's a continued battle. Nothing's worse than the most beautiful calf coming out and it's a paint. And I'm not going to get into a paint conversation up here at all, but I'm just telling you it's an immediate call on our operation because it freaks out every other commercial producer, and secondary is horns. I think as a breed, and we will never single trait select, some of our best cattle are horned cattle, but I think there'll be continued movement. It's the number one thing we get requests for is red and black polled Beefmasters, and I think that trend will continue because people don't like dealing with horns, especially up in Kansas. It freaks them out. I think they forgot that there's horned cattle out there.
Doc? Yes, sir.
How do you just select your herd sires and your donor cows in both of your programs? What do you look for that makes them exceptional?
Number one's consistency. That's what we base our entire program off of, is consistency and predictability. So I really am scared of an animal that I look up and I don't see any basis on maybe the cow family side. Most of our herd bulls and the donor semen sire is going to be out of a notable sire, but I want to see a known cow family with tons of predictability. Because yes, there are individuals that are out there, and I can make some really comical comparisons. Well, won't do that today. But when I go out to pick a donor or a herd bull, I want to know that animal's siblings and its parents were both productive, and maybe for years and years of consistency, so that if I'm in an ET program, most of the ET programs that I've seen fail over the years were people that wanted to play Christopher Columbus. They went out and said, I'm going to buy this donor over here, and I'm going to pick this bull over there, and I'm going to put them both together, and I'm going to get the best of both worlds. No, you're not. You're going to get probably a 75% chance of a disaster. What you want is, like, I noticed this genetic line is always hitting with this genetic line, and I know that if I bring this third one in, I'm going to curtail right into that, and I'm going to 75% of the time I'm going to get on base. And in an ET program, that is uber critical. Now, we do about 20 to 30% kind of exploratory, kind of experimental crosses. Sometimes they work, sometimes they don't. I will tell you, in about 15 years of AI, the number of bulls I've repeated use over 2 seasons, I can count on one hand because of consistency. Not that I didn't get good individuals, but I didn't sit there and hit 8 out of 10 calves. It was like one good one, 5 haul-offs. I I'm not using that bull again. So consistency of pedigree and genetics first and foremost. Obviously, then we always want to push the performance envelope. So if I've covered the basis of consistency, then where am I excelling? Is it a ribeye, an IMF? Is it whole? Is it an EPD trait? Then we'll go from there.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with that comment. He uses consistency. I'll use the word phenotype. I mean, we actually start with, believe it or not, we put a huge emphasis on EPDs and numbers, but we start with phenotype when it comes to mating. You know what typically will work from a phenotype, and we're looking for whether we're trying to add a little bit more breed character into what we're doing. Being from the Midwest and Kansas, we breed cows a certain way for a little bit less underlined, and they're looking for a little bit different type of animal. So we kind of have two herds within our herd, but we start with consistency and phenotype. You know, as breeders, we're all trying to raise the next great one, right? And it's always fun to tweak with that yearling heifer on IBF and see if you can make it. We will do that some. I'd say 20-30% like Trey, but we only do it with very, very consistent pedigrees that have been proven over a long time. And I do believe that you can get away with doing that, but it can be risky. You got to be prepared to having a complete fail. And depending on your budget, we all know how expensive ETs are and calf buybacks or not calf buybacks, but calf raisers. I mean, it's a couple $1,000 to have someone raise an ET calf for you. So, but we start with phenotype and then go from there.
Ed? Good, Mike.
My question's on DNA. I know we're pushing forward on the breed to get more and more DNA. I know Derek, when he sent the sales results out, he broke out the price difference in the ones that were DNA versus the ones that weren't. But can you share some of your knowledge? I know it's frustrating for us to get it done, and it's pretty pricey. So I know you got some requests for it, and on the price points and stuff, maybe share some knowledge from you guys that maybe will get more and more people to keep DNA.
Yeah, I think what we said a few weeks before the sale, because it was a hot topic, is we're going to require every animal to have DNA. And it's, in my opinion, people may disagree. I think it's our obligation as a purebred breeder to provide accurate DNA and to prove the EPDs behind the animal. If it's not something you want to do, I think you should be in the commercial cattle industry. So I truly believe that.
Amen.
We're always continuing to bang on Neogen. We do a lot of business with them on the feeding side. Is to try to get it cheaper and cheaper. I know it's expensive, but I just truly believe it's our obligation.
That's all I got.
Yeah, we require it, Chris, on everything in the Advantage program and bull sale, just because we don't want a breeder testing an animal later and finding out it's not what they bought. That's our biggest deal. We want that customer confidence. And it is a struggle. My wife, there's a special place in heaven for her dealing with cowboys and their blood cards and the data that's not right sometimes. But we all go through those, and she goes, how can it be verified to the sire and verified to the dam, but not to the mating pair? That's the one she loves the best.
But what you could be getting at, and we got burnt on this our first few years in the breed, is you buy an animal and you don't pay attention, it wasn't DNA, and here we are 3 years later after some ET work, and we made changes inside the breed to try to avoid that. But we've been burnt on it before, and we had some really nice bull calves that are going to be steers that were ET calves that we learned our lesson the hard way. So, but I think that's all of us in the room. We need to make sure that we don't put anybody in that situation. I mean, I'm a big believer. It's our obligation. We have to get on board with DNA.
No one wants to be in that position, as you mentioned, Derek, to have to go down that road. And, you know, I realize that it does put a little more work into what you've got to do as a breeder. But at the end of the day, you don't want to be on the other side of having to volley it back whenever it comes back not being what you thought it was. Nobody wants to be in that position.
As a smaller breeder, what can y'all speak to on self-promotion?
Yeah, that's a good one, Lance. Our breed is made up mostly of smaller breeders. I don't know, what is our average herd size in BDU? Around 20 head? Probably. Especially with the junior members having 1 or 2, it might be even lower than that.
I think if you take them out, it's still probably 20.
Yeah, so, you know, exposure is the number one thing a small breeder can do for themselves. If you're here today, you're on the right path. You're getting out in front of people, you're letting them know who you are, you're shaking their hand, they're seeing your face. You know, when I go to an event and there's maybe 3 identical heifers, and I can't choose which one I want to purchase, but 2 of them are from breeders I've never seen, known, or heard of, and one of them's the guy that I see every year at the committee meetings, and he's at the convention, and I've shaken his hand, I'm going to buy that heifer. And I'm probably going to pay more for it. And that bull, because I have a confidence and a comfort level. So I would say the number one thing a small breeder could do is exposure. Let everybody know who you are and go shake some hands and go mix it up.
Yeah, the quickest way to get exposure is to bring a really good one to Collier's program or the programs we talked about and get your name out there. I think of the last 6 bull sales, we've started the bull sale off with someone else's animal sitting in our Nextgen arena. It doesn't matter if it's Lauren Lissy or Kendall or whoever raises the best one is going to be at the top of the sale order. And we love it when it's not a, well, we prefer it to be a Nextgen bull, but we love it because we know our consigners are following the guidelines and really trying to improve their program. But
yeah, there's probably nothing more rewarding than to see one of those smaller breeders sell an animal for big dollars.
Absolutely.
That's probably more rewarding to me than our program selling one for big dollars, because you know you've done something that helped this person be successful, and it's going to pay it forward for you every time.
Absolutely.
Every time.
Mike Moss?
Considering where you are in the country, when you decided to get into the cattle business, why Beefmasters?
Well, to be honest, Bill Pendergrass is the guy that kind of led us in that direction. We knew Bill from feeding cattle, and the guy that runs our feed yard operation, Mark Sobronic, and Doug Husfeld works for us, and the connection there. Back to what I talked about on selecting 2 breeds that we thought complemented Angus cattle. We truly do believe that. You know, we're also surrounded within 20 miles of our ranch of probably 10 different Angus bull sales, and we're kind of wired in the way that we want to do things different. Hence the name Nextgen. We truly believe the next generation cow-calf guy are going to have to do things different, and we preach that message. So I don't know if that answers your question, but and we've fed a lot of eared cattle. We've been feeding eared cattle for 12, 13 years, so we knew the benefits of them.
My question's for Derek. I'm a small breeder. We don't have a lot of cows. And we calve spring and fall, so whenever we wean calves, we don't have a big group of calves to wean. And so, but we do try to select our bull calves that we're going to keep at weaning time. I'll have the University of Missouri livestock specialist come, and whenever we weigh and wean, he kind of helps us pick out what he thinks would be bull keepers. But anyway, the point I'm getting to, we end up with steer calves, because we sure don't keep every bull calf for a bull. And I'll talk to you about this a little bit anyway, but a good way to sell our steer Beefmaster calves without taking them to the sale barn and maybe getting a cut on them, because they've got a little ear. And we'll talk to you about your plant in Pleasant Hope, Missouri. But anyway, are there feeders that we could contact that would feed, that would be interested in buying our cattle? Or just if you could give us some direction on that. I'll talk to you a little bit about that, but I'd like a little bit more information, please.
Yeah, great question. You are correct. You take a purebred Beefmaster to a Missouri sale barn and take 6 or 7 of them or 10 of them, they're going to be $10 to $15 back of the other cattle in that barn. That's just fact. What I would encourage you to do, and James Skelton actually does this better than anybody in the breed, is he's from Arkansas, and he works with other breeders in his area, and they put together full load lots and send them out to Nextgen's feed yard. And I'm not promoting Nextgen's feed yard, but there's other feed yards you can feed your cattle with. But if you want to maximize your dollars, in my opinion, plus get carcass data back on your animals to improve your herd, that's the best way to do it. But you can't, James has loaded up, 10 or 15 head and drove them out there themselves. You can't haul 15 head on a semi. So we got to get full load lots and send them out to the yard and, again, collect that data. But that's the best avenue to maximize dollars, or you got to swallow that hit you're going to take at the local barn. You bet.
Going along on those lines, obviously all these breeders were producing a lot more steers than we are bulls because of selection criteria. Obviously, we're really hard on bull selection, and so we want to keep the very best bulls, so you create a lot of steers. And explain from a commercial feed yard perspective and a feeder cattle perspective, you mentioned about liking to see these, some of these smaller breeders on occasion top their sale. And when they do that, it's because they started their cattle right from the time they were babies. They didn't just happen into that top spot. And they got a bull there, but they produced several females, but they produced a lot of steers that in one form or another, every steer is going to get weaned, whether it's through the sale barn or through a backgrounding program or through y'all's backgrounding program. But explain why it's so important to, from a vaccination protocol, starting these cattle right so that when they wind up in your feed yard, your calves are eating, feeding, drinking water. They're not spending days in the hospital pens, and what a sick calf costs you, cost to gain at the end relative to calves that stay healthy.
Yeah, there's a lot there, but a very good point. And if you talk to any of our consigners in the room, they will tell you we spend a lot of time talking about that as the prep work. And keep in mind, we're trying to get these animals roughly 60 days weaned before they come to Nextgen, then we carry them to the sales. We have them almost a year at our place. But I tell people, one of the challenges in doing that is we're taking animals from all across. I mean, we got Mississippi, Texas, Missouri, Oklahoma. You're starting behind the 8 ball a little bit just in that, the fact that we're coming from different environments. But if the animal is not taken care of at home, and we have a vac protocol that we ask people to follow religiously, but they're going from kindergarten to junior high like that. And I tell people they're going to go into an environment, they're going to compete at the bunk with what we feel like there's some great genetics out there. And if they start behind, they'll never catch up. So I think nutrition at home, proper mineral programs are just absolutely critical in that stage. So we preach it, and it never fails that stuff happens still, but it does have a huge impact on how they're cared for at home.
Austin, something else on that beyond the animal health. If you're going to bring an animal to either a heifer development, but especially a bull development program, this beginning weight per day of age is critical on these bulls. If you think you're going to wean a calf and kick him out on a round bale for 90 days and then bring him to one of the bull tests and be successful, you're fixing to be very upset. Those cattle need to be gaining that 2.25 to 2.5 a day post-weaning to the time they get there to a bull test facility so that we can have an adequate weight per day of age on those cattle. And you'll find, Derek probably sees the same thing, if you're worried about the average daily gain or a gain test, it's not, yes, we can starve one back and get maybe a 4 or 5, 6 pound average daily gain for a short period of time, but you still don't have a better animal. In fact, you probably have an animal that's maybe blown some joints or stressed his feet by that type of acceleration gain. So one that gets there low and slow like a good brisket over time and stays at the rate of gain like you need it to be, you're going to be real happy with his output. And we always see the top performers in our test, and I'm sure the same in y'all, they were good when they came in and they just stayed good all the way through. Yes, there's animals that kind of had a little blurb on the radar, and it may have pushed them up in one of our categories in our formula. I'm sure the BOF will see the same thing, but in the end, it's probably not the best overall animal. So get them there, don't overfeed them, but they need to be doing well as they approach coming into one of these tests.
And hand feeding and doing things like that are not helpful for a bull because he's going into an environment where he's got to compete at the bunk, and he mentioned throwing out a bale ring. I mean, that's not bunk broke. They need to be bunk broke when they show up at our place because the pecking order is established the day they go in that pen. So it's critical, and if they start way behind, they will never catch up. I've never seen a bull start way behind and all of a sudden just catch up in a 8-9 month period of time. It doesn't happen.
Melvin?
I'm going to address this to both of you, realizing everybody in this room is registered Beefmaster breeders. This question is addressed to both of you, preferably Derek first, because he's marketing two breeds. Both of y'all have customers that are purebred and commercial in either breed. What is the selection criteria that you see first in selecting bulls on your commercial buyers? Is it phenotype, birth weight, weaning weight, yearling weight, or IMF or REA?
Yeah, I would say really all above, and I think it's important. At least at our operation, we're trying to create bulls that go out in the commercial market. If we happen to raise one that a purebred breeder wants, that's what, in our opinion, is icing on the cake. But really, truly, it's not any one of those. It's all of them, and it depends on demographics, and it really starts with getting out and seeing your producers and looking at their cow herd. There's whether it's whether they're got to live on 20 to 50 acres to a pair, or like in Kansas, it's 5 to 6 acres to a pair. They got to go travel 5 miles to get water in the upper Northwest, and you got to design bulls that fit in those markets. So, I mean, I'm not trying to avoid your question, but it really truly is all of the above. A lot of commercial guys, especially with the two breeds we're talking about, aren't looking for heifer bulls. So birth weight isn't, I mean, they're not looking for 100-pound calves, but, dealing with an 85, 90-pound calf is no issue to them because they're not trying to breed heifers with a Charolais or a Beefmaster. So it could really be any of the above, but really truly understanding what your customer wants is pretty damn important when you're breeding.
I'd probably say on our is I would say color and phenotype are number one. I mean, you can make him as good as you want, and if he walks up as good a performance as you want. If he walks up to the pen, he's speckled up or off-colored or has some undesirable phenotype, structure, be it overly sheepy, broke back, bad-footed, light bone, whatever it is, they're just out. At any reasonable price. I mean, not your cow freshener guys looking for the $1,500 special, but any respectable guy, he's probably going to walk up to that pen and go to marking his catalog by what he likes when he sees them in the pen. Then he's going to go back, and most of my commercial guys that are pretty smart realize, hey, I've got a $4,500 budget. They're not marking their favorites. They're marking the ones they absolutely don't want first, like going down the alley saying, ooh, I don't like something about that leg structure. I don't like, he didn't have enough body for me. Then they'll go back through the data. And then I would say probably, being a commercial guy, weaning weight trumps everything because they've got to put pounds on the ground. So they want to see good 650, plus weaning weights in their cattle. They still look at a lot of actual data because a lot of them buy Charolais bulls or Angus bulls and Beefmaster bulls, and they're not super versed in EPDs. They are looking at them, but usually when it comes to EPDs, I found more of them look at the birth weight EPD. So they will look at the birth weight itself, and they'll go, he's got an 85-pound birth weight, but he's average or breed average EPD. He's probably safe. Or if he's a really high birth weight EPD and he's the same weight calf, they're like, ooh, I might want to watch out there. Was that a wink 85 pounds, or was that, really an 85 pound? So I would say structure, visual first, and then weaning, and then birth. Then we get into carcass. We don't have as many retained ownership guys in our part of the world like Derek does up there, so we don't have as many breeders looking at REA and IMF as maybe I'd like them to be. Maybe we're not targeting that enough, or maybe we're not doing it. As a breeder, I'm always asking myself, what am I not doing a good enough job at, and why am I not getting questions on this? And maybe I'm falling short somewhere in the marketing scheme or in what we're producing, and so those people aren't coming to look for those bulls. So that's some of my personal challenges, but yeah, that's what we look at on our commercial guys. And price. They've got, again, back to that 6 calves pace for a bull, 3,500 to 5,500. Anything outside that becomes a real premium.
Yeah, I've heard it a million times from our commercial guys. They walk out with the catalog and they look at phenotype, then they look at numbers. And I mentioned 70-30 earlier. I believe in that. It depends what the guy's looking for. He's trying to make females. Phenotype's probably 90% of the game, and as long as they don't get hammered on the carcass side.
just echo what both those guys said from study standpoints. Most of those guys, when they do get there, they look at phenotype, and then the EPDs they look at would be birth weight first, then probably weaning weight. And if y'all can tell me what y'all seen on our indexes, because I think it's something just as a psychology, a dollar sign draws somebody's eyes to it. What do y'all see there?
I don't know if I got enough real good feedback, but I think, to be honest with you, I think it confuses most of the commercial guys. We always try to put the percentile ranking underneath where we do in our catalog. I think that helps them more than anything, and they see that it's in the top 10% and they feel good about it. But I would say less than 10% of our commercial guys really truly understand dollar T&M, and it's our job as breeders to help them. They do appreciate indexes. They know it's a combination of all the EPDs together. So I would say most of them probably go to those two immediately versus individuals for the most part. But how many of them really truly understand what goes into dollar M? I think a lot of them would be shocked if they knew what actually goes into it.
Yeah, I'd agree with Derek on that. I think the indexes do help Lance better than individual numbers, but they don't really understand what they mean. And we have to realize that the rancher of today or yesteryear is fading. We've got a really younger population coming up and a smaller population, and the day of the professional rancher is probably almost over. A lot of people, it's a secondary source of income for a lot of the breeders out there. And imagine yourself going out there, graduating college, and say, I'm going to go make a living just running cows. Unless you've got a serious in, or grandpa gave you a ranch with 500 to 1,000 cows on it, you're going to be having a tough row to hoe. Not saying that you can't go out and lease a pasture and run some really nice cattle and make a little side money, but you're not going to probably put food on the table. So those guys are going to have, they're going to have very little time to study and know that stuff. And like Derek said, the indexes, maybe with them understanding what percentile rank they fall in, makes them feel a little better. Something that I think we have to be very mindful of as a breed moving forward is any data that we put out, we need to make sure that it's not confusing or devaluing some of the cattle that are out there. That's always a challenge when you launch a new EPD value or a new number is, what's it do to the majority of cattle in the breed when we go out with this number? Because sometimes, I give this analogy, this guy's found this perfect bull, he's red, he's polled, he's got the birth weight, he's got the weaning weight, and then he finds this new EPD value or something we've come out with, and it's in the worst 95th percentile, and he's going, oh God, I was in love with this bull, but I just didn't have one in the worst 95th percentile. Well, the accuracy is 0.02, and he's going, wow. So we have to be careful a little bit about what we publish and tell the commercial producer, because sometimes it's information overload. Sometimes keep it simple, stupid is the best method.
Something I was going to reiterate a little bit ago, and you guys echoed it a little bit, Lance, and you just mentioned it. Talking about when the guy gets there and he's looking at him in the pen. Well, in today's world with technology available, most people in the commercial world have looked at them before they've gotten to the sale, which is great. I mean, the videos that are going out and the work that's done on the front end, getting cataloged out early enough, because it's really great to see those commercial guys show up. They've got things marked. They've looked at some various things. Phenotype is first and foremost, and we agree, but you see the guys that take their highlighters, they mark other things, and then it becomes about price. So kudos to those programs that have spent the time and effort and the money getting that information out there, because it certainly helps those guys make a decision. That guy that typically shows up 15 minutes before the sale and is going to buy them, out of the ring, that's normally problematic or something that's going to happen. But yeah, are these bull sales that you see at your local sale barn? They've seen some success that Nextgen or Collier or Beef on Forger ever had. They want to go out and do it themselves, and they go put together 100 or 200 bulls and bring them in, and think that everybody's going to show up and it falls through the floor, and that's normally what happens. So again, that marketing certainly helps on the front end.
Something on a marketing deal, Lance, I want to say before I forget, or else I'll forget this point, but y'all can all get a good kick out of me over there at the bull video talking about the bulls on the video, and all my friends like to give me a little rib every once in a while about that, and boy, you get excited about them, and I really do get excited about them. But when you're wanting to market an animal, and you're going, Trey, how do I increase the value of my animals in your event or any event? My answer is going to be, give me something to talk about. Give me something to talk about. So when I'm going to narrate these bulls, I've got the page of their certificate there, and I've got the bull, what he looks like, I've got his pedigree, and I've got his performance status. So if I look at the bull, he's just a bull. And then I go to his pedigree, and it's just a pedigree, and everything's removed 2 or 3 generations. And I go to his data, and it's lackluster at best with no shining star data point. That animal is going to be tough to market, and he's probably going to be one of those price shopper specials. So if you want to enhance your personal marketing in your cattle, give me something to talk about. Give Derek something to talk about or write about.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I'd really like to commend y'all on something. Everybody that's here, all the sales that I've seen recently, BOF most recently, the number of families and the younger producers there, what we saw at Nextgen, what I know we'll see at Collier's from what we've seen at their most recent female sales and other bull sales. And Trey touched on it a little bit, but your next generation of cattle producer is a little bit different. How do we reach them?
The marketing and the sale, in my opinion, take all the breeds out there. These commercial guys can go buy their bulls anywhere. We take a philosophy that we try to obviously give them a phenomenal product, but we're also in the entertainment industry as a purebred breeder. We're in the entertainment business with cattle. And we try to provide an experience like no other when they come to our bull sale. And we hope when they leave, they see a tremendous amount of hospitality. They have a chance to rub elbows with some very successful commercial cattle guys, leave with a good product, and have one hell of a good time. And I do think that matters. As an industry, we've kind of left that. In my opinion, the bull sales, I've heard stories. I was a young kid back in the 70s and 80s about the parties that used to go on at these bull sales. And I think it's okay that we allow people to have a good time, and we have a ton of kids. So cool to see kids at our sale running around from all next to the woods and having a great time. So
yeah, I think one of the things we can do at association level and even with our own programs is, inclusion of the youth is critical, both in our leadership and committee. Something that I know we've worked on when Mackie was there as president of BBU. That was something he was really adamant about and highly supportive of, was bringing in these younger people and getting them involved, because they will sit in the back row, and that's going to be more and more the case. You're going to have a in-person discussion over the iPhone with some of these kids nowadays. And so, but I do think that's going to be a way to reach them. Geraldine does a great job, but you can do those things in your own operation. I don't do face chat and Instabook and all those things, but my wife does, and she stays involved with those things and correlates to that younger generation coming up. Those are the ones that are, and a lot of them are making some pretty good money too, and they are excited about the industry and they want to do it right. And so, not taking advantage of them, helping them out, not just selling them something, but really helping these people out with the program, go introduce them, show them and point them in the right direction. I think that's going to be big to gaining that next generation.
James?
With your Show Me Beef deal, are you, in a couple of years, are you going to have feed yards for the Missouri breeder to go to?
yeah, absolutely. We have them currently. So that program is the lifetime of the animal in the state of Missouri, so they can't leave the state. So that we currently work with multiple yards in Missouri. So if any of you from Missouri and want to connect a commercial guy or even yourself to that program, we need more cattle. It's currently a 400 head a week program. We need to get to 900 head a week. So.
Any other questions? I think, guys, that this has really been a great event. I really appreciate the efforts again, too, Trey, you and Derek on there. Just a little bit of a side note. I don't know if you guys are aware of what the cow herd of the United States is, the active cow herd. But I think the number's somewhere around 31 million. Is that right, Lance? Somewhere thereabout? All right, so let's just take the fruition of whatever it may be. The need out there annually is about 6 million bulls is what's needed out there. This year, we've sold 300 more bulls than what we sold last year. We're going to be selling close to 3,000 bulls in the breed. Let's compare that 3,000 to 6 million that's needed out there, guys. Well, there's room to grow. You know, the competition isn't within. The competition is out there. We got to get out there amongst them, okay? Is really what it boils down to. And again, we all do our part. We're going to cross paths, you know, and with each other out there as we're making these inroads in March. But we've got to do our part as a breeder, as a consigner, to bring the best product that we can to the table, and that we can go out there and reach those customers. It doesn't hurt any of us to go up those driveways, as Derek always, you know, talks about when they're out traveling, or that we go out and do the same thing. And Trey, we all do that. But as a breeder, you owe it to the breed and the association. Get out there and market your product if you're proud of it. But again, I appreciate all you guys attending. And if there's any further questions, we'll have it over a drink at the bar, okay? Thank you, guys.